Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. Now today I'd like to continue with part 2 of my Italian module D ration and take a look at their lunch and dinner components. So let's get the lunch and dinner on a table and see what those packs contain. So, welcome back to part 2 of this Italian 24-hour module D ration, and in this video I'd like to look at the lunch and dinner components, and to save a little bit of time I already have the lunch components laid out on the tray. Now I've already preheated what was the mains. In this case it's a tin of ravioli, there is a tin of mixed fruit, there is a coffee with sugar, some biscuits or crackers, there is some tuna with peas, and we'll take a look at the vitamin pills and the bran tablets. So as I say, to save a little bit of time, I've already preheated the ravioli. I had to crack the lid to make sure there are no explosions, and we'll have a look at the knife, fork, spoon set which came with this lunch component. So again, a very simplistic knife, fork, spoon, not very strong looking, but it looks like it's probably suitable for one meal use. And again, a couple of little serviettes. So just put those two on side, and I'm going to start where I always like to start, and that is with the beverages and the coffee. So we'll take a quick look at the instant coffee. Again, there is no whitener in this ration, so it's a black coffee, and we'll just pour that in there, and it looks like it's a very fine, highly ground powder. And we'll just add a little bit of the sugar, quite a large pack. I think I should just give it half of that sugar should be sufficient, and using the spoon which came with it, we shall just give that about half a cup or just under. Now the coffee I had for the breakfast, I must admit, I don't know if you remember seeing that video, it wasn't actually the best, so I'll give this the least amount of water that you expect an instant to do, to see if that helps improve things. Just rinse my spoon. So a sort of dark looking roast there. I'll move along to emptying the mains. As I said, this is ravioli, a little bit watery, so I have a bowl here to catch all of those juices. Now there was a lot of juices there, and it was just a very basic, simplistic ravioli tin, spilt all down the sides there, so let me get rid of that. There was a lot of liquid in that ravioli, and we'll have a look at the tuna and peas, and this obviously is cold. I suppose you could warm it, but tuna I think is usually best served cold, and it looks like it's in an oil. So there's a tuna and peas, and we have a tin of fruit cocktail or mixed fruit. So again, we'll just pop the seal on that. Now these do seem very full of the liquid juices. And again, just drop that lid to one side. We also have what are bran tablets, so a little bit of bran or fibre to help keep things moving. I'm sure you know what I mean. We'll have a look at one of those. There is 10, and also we have 4 vitamin tablets. Again, 4-pack. We should just open the one to have a look. There is 4 of those vitamin pills. Put those to one side. I should just move the others out of the way. And finally, we have some more crackers or biscotto. Probably not saying that right. We'll just bring in a knife to help open those up. And again, like for the breakfast, they all seem pretty smashed and crushed, so we'll just empty a few of these on the tray. Being in boxes, you would have thought they'd have survived a little bit better than they have, but they seem to have took quite a lot of battle damage. So, where do I start? I think we shall start with the coffee. So, doesn't smell particularly strong, mild aroma. And again, even with a third of a cup of water, it is slightly better than what I had for breakfast, but it is, in my opinion, a poor quality, low grade instant. It is an instant coffee. It is recognised as such, but it's certainly not one of the better brands out there. But it is a recognisable hot coffee flavoured drink, and I think we shall go straight to the mains this time. Now, there was a lot of juice, an awful lot of juice. I think if these were commercial packs sold in the UK, there'll be a lot of complaints about the lack of the ravioli. So we'll have a look at one of those raviolis there. Basic canned ravioli, a little bit of the sauce there. The sauce and the ravioli are only just salted and peppered sufficiently. A mild tomato sauce. Certainly, again, I wouldn't say a quality canned ravioli, but it is a typical canned style ravioli, which I think most people have probably had around the world. Quite soft, quite overcooked, very, very typical canned ravioli. But if this was sold in the UK, there'd be a lot of complaints from the consumers about the amount of liquid and actual lack of ravioli. But it is what it is, a canned ravioli, not of the best quality, but certainly still relatively enjoyable. Now again, we'll have a look at these crackers. They look very similar to the ones seen in the part 1 where I looked at the breakfast crackers. Very light, very simplistic again. Just simply wheat flour and very little else with the flavour. Try a little bit in the saucer. Not over inspiring on their own, quite light. You can see the aerations on the bottom, but I think this is the sort of cracker where you'd be better off just dropping them in this sauce. There's certainly plenty of sauce, plenty of juice there. Maybe this is where you get the extra that's needed. I'll just leave those a few minutes to soak up some of those juices, and we'll come back to those. I think I'll just rinse a spoon there. Come back. And I think we'll take a look at this tuna with peas. Now, it looks like it's in an oil, tuna in oil, with peas. Nice big chunks of tuna at the bottom of the tin there. Let's have a taste of that first. Certainly in oil. I would have to guess, say, an olive oil. There is a very strong flavour of those peas. Those peas are very prevalent. Quite salty. There's quite a lot of salt. There is a fishy aftertaste, almost like a mackerel. So a tuna normally has very little fish flavour. This one has, with the oil, the fish flavour's gone into the oil and it's made like an oily fish, almost like a mackerel. Very salted. Peas are just cooked, they're just al dente, just on the just cooked side, but the mackerel is quite oily, quite fishy flavoured, which is unusual for the tuna. Sorry, I call it mackerel for the tuna. But it is enjoyable and quite tasty. Now, come back to one of those crackers. Now it's had time to soak up some of those juices. Still crisp, still crunchy, but certainly needed to bulk up the contents of the otherwise quite sparse ravioli there. But certainly the crackers are needed to increase that. I'm just going to rinse my spoon once again. I have got a knife and fork, but most of these actually have a lot of liquid, a lot of fluid, so the fork is not going to be much use, so I need to keep cleaning the spoon. And we'll have a look now at this mixed fruit. I can see peaches, I can see pears, I can see very little else in there. Peaches and pears are the prominent fruits. Light syrup, light sweet syrup. Again, it is the canned style mixed fruit that most people around the world know what it tastes like. It does just seem like this particular tin, it's just peaches and pears. Can't actually see any other fruits in there. The label does suggest there may be cherries, there may be grapes, but I certainly can't see any grapes, and I certainly can't see any cherries in there. It's nearly all peaches, peaches and pears, but it is a nice, light, refreshing canned fruit. Now, I've just realised I haven't actually got any water to take the bran pill, so I'm not going to take the bran. I do need some water to swallow that. I don't think I'll be able to do it very well with the coffee, but it is just a little pill of 8. You wouldn't taste that anyway, you just swallow it like any other pill. But I will try the vitamin tablet. It does say it's a fruit flavour, so crispy, it's quite tart, quite sour in flavour. It's not very sweet. It does feel like you're just crunching a vitamin pill in your mouth. There is a sort of fruit flavour to it, but again, certainly not a pleasant flavour to that fruit. So, quick recap of this lunch. Coffee, slightly disappointing or fairly disappointing. Low grade, low quality coffee, only the minimum amount of water needed, and even with a third of a cup it's still very minimalistic in flavour, very lacking, very poor quality coffee. The raviolis, for what there aren't many in the tin, are typical canned tin style raviolis which most people would be familiar with around the world. Unfortunately there isn't many of them. As you can see, the majority of the can is this juice or this gravy, which does require the biscuits. On their own, the biscuits are uninspiring. They're just a simple white flour cracker, but needed to certainly soak up some of those juices. For that purpose, they do a decent job, and after a couple of minutes soaking, they are an extra bulking agent, which is seriously needed, in my opinion, for the lack of the raviolis. The tuna and peas is in an oil. Very prominent taste of peas throughout the dish. The oil in the fish does actually make the tuna seem more like a mackerel, an oily sea fish, as opposed to a tuna style fish. But it is a decent quality, decent tasting. The peas are just done. Out of all the dish, I think that's probably the best part. Let's just try a little bit with some of the tomato juice there. Yeah, does go. The oil will add a little bit of separation, but it does add an extra dimension, an extra flavour to that sauce there. The tinned fruit seems to be predominantly peaches and pears. The can does suggest there will be cherries and grapes in there. I can't see no evidence of any cherry or grape, but it is in a light syrup, a light sweet syrup. Again, the sort of thing that most people around the world would be familiar with, just canned fruit. Didn't actually take one of the brand tablets. They are just a simple pill. Unfortunately, I did forget to supply some water, so it would be very difficult for me to swallow without, but it's just a pill. It would just be a taste of taking the pill like any other pills, but it's a nice addition if you're feeling the need to sort of need a little help. So I'm going to leave the lunch component here. Please join me in a moment when we have a look at the dinner or evening meal. And welcome back to the dinner or supper component of this Italian 24-hour ration. And again, to save a little bit of time, I've preheated what is the vegetable soup that was in the tin, so that's already in the bowl preheated. And we have the same coffee and sugar we've just seen with the lunch, so I'm not going to bother with that. It's not my favourite coffee, so I'm just going to stick with water for this particular meal. There is no cold drinks in this Italian 24-hour. We also have the same napkins, knife, fork and spoon set, so I'm just going to bring in the ones from the lunch component. Again, shame to open 2 packets when they're already there. Likewise, the biscuits, there is another packet of the identical biscuits seen in the lunch, so I'm going to bring in the leftover crackers from the lunch menu. And that just leaves the other 2 new components, which is the beef in jelly. Now, I have had a look. Most beefs in jelly should be eaten cold. I've had a look on the back. It does say store at room temperature and refrigerate after opening, so I'm assuming this is a cold meat, so we'll just open that as it is. It's a very large tin of compressed meat in a jelly, just as the name suggests. And as you can see, there is 2 identical fruit energy bars, so again we should just open one for the demonstration purposes and take a look at those. Now it does look like it's just a compressed fruit bar there. Looks like figs and dates maybe. We shall find out as we taste them. So the main component again is the soup, and just like the lunchtime ravioli, it's very heavy on the liquid and not so much on the internal contents, but there is, looking at these, there is a good mixture. Try not to spill it all everywhere. There is a good mixture of carrots and peas and potatoes and different beans in a soup style sauce or soup style gravy, so we'll have a little taste of those. Again, not overly flavoured. There is some mixed herbs in there. As you can see, there is some quite larger chunks of potato. So it is a mixed vegetable soup. The vegetables are just done. They're not soggy. They're al dente, just cooked, but not without being raw. Once again, there is an awful lot of the liquid and maybe not so much of the vegetable content, although there do seem to be more of the vegetables than there was in the ravioli. Overall, a very similar tasting dish to the ravioli. Now again, same biscuits or crackers that we just saw in the lunch component, so I'm going to use the same idea. I'm going to put those same biscuits as some croutons, if you like, into the soup. and we'll just give those a few minutes to do their thing. Let's mix those in a little bit. I'm just going to cleanse my palate with a little bit of water before and move on. And we move on to the meat in jelly. Now, it does look very reminiscent of a pet food, I must say. That's not a very appetizing look, but it's nice and soft. It's broken up nice and easy as I've tried to stir it there with the knife, so I'll taste a little bit off the knife. Very much like a corned beef, it's canned corned beef. That's exactly what it is, but it seems a lot more loose, a lot more jelly, nicely salted, nicely peppered. Personally, I think it's one of the better components out of the whole meal. So again, I'll just try it with a couple of the vegetables out of the soup. That does go very well. It gives it a meaty texture. It adds a little bit of meat fibres to that and meat flavours to those vegetables. Try a bit more there. You could quite easily pour all of the meat into the soup, so you're eating it with meat and vegetables, and that does actually improve the soup tremendously. Very nice, very tasty, soft, chewy, not chewy, sorry, easy to chew, very much like a corned beef, a tinned canned corned beef. Certainly eat it cold. Would fry very nicely in a fry pan or skillet, but we haven't got one of those. As it is, it's most enjoyable. Let's try one of those crackers in the soup. Now it's our time to soften. Certainly needed, certainly needed. The addition of the beef and the crackers hugely lifts what would be a very disappointing calorific wise soup. Cleanse the palate, and we'll have a final look at this energy bar, fruit energy bar. It's just soft, it just breaks apart, it's not sticky, it doesn't feel like it's got any honey or treacle or anything like that in it, or syrup. Dates, figs, maybe some apple, but it certainly is a compressed fig. There is figs in there. We have things in the UK called fig rolls. I think I've heard mention of fig Newtons maybe in the US, which look very similar, but it is the sort of centre that you get in those fig rolls. Fig Newton, it's a fig based fruit bar, but that means not, if you like figs, that by no means is a bad thing. It's tasty, it's enjoyable. Figs have a lot of fibre, so I'm sure it's also good for you. So, cleanse my palate. Very simplistic evening meal. There is a vegetable soup, which again, vegetables, nice, tasty, but very much the lesser of the ingredients. Most of the contents is this liquid or the soup base. That was greatly enhanced with the addition of some of the crackers and some of the meat. The meat is a corned beef style tinned meat, perfectly palatable cold. Personally, I think it's one of the best components out of the entire 3 meals on the ration. But would, if you had a pan, it would fry very nice, make a nice crispy meat, like a corned beef ash style. And the energy bars, fig bars, just compressed figs. Doesn't feel like there's any sticky molasses, sugar, honey or anything like that. Just compressed dried figs. So overall, personally, I'm a little bit disappointed by the Italian 24-hour ration. These rations are highly prized among some of the ration reviewing community. On a personal note, I'm slightly disappointed. I don't think they deserve that reputation. Most of the contents are edible, but they are of low grade, low quality, cheap style, pound store, dollar store style components. So I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification button for future videos coming very soon. So thank you and goodbye.